This is the Ferrari GTS, capable of maintaining road speeds of almost 200 miles per hour, able to handle the world's most difficult corners. This car is loaded with high-tech hardware and software systems. Hardware and software that the driver uses as tools. Tools that provide critical information so that the driver can maximize the full potential of this car's performance. The better the driver uses these tools, the faster this car can go.
That description of the Ferrari sounds a lot like your LAN environment. Just like that Ferrari, your LAN is also full of the latest hardware and software technology. Hardware and software that helps users like you maximize your productivity. But there is more to it than just high-technology hardware and software.
In the hands of the right driver, this Ferrari can gracefully outperform cars from all over the world. In the hands of an inexperienced driver, this exact same car can easily overheat, burn fuel improperly, and overpower the driver in tight corners. Within seconds, this car can turn from a technological masterpiece into a life-threatening time bomb. No hardware or software system in the world can replace the knowledgeable and experienced driver.
That also sounds a lot like your LAN environment. You see, as an end user on the LAN, you are like the driver. Just like the driver uses the car, you use the LAN. Both the car and the LAN are loaded with up-to-date hardware and software, but just like the example of the driver, unless you know the basics of your LAN, you can't maximize what the LAN can do for you. The LAN can be a liability to you instead of an asset. But we're here to help. In this 40-minute videotape, we're going to give you, the LAN end user, a basic understanding of LANs. We're going to assume nothing. We're going to teach you about LANs in the most non-technical way that we can. We'll try to simplify as much as possible and try to stick to only the information an end user like you really needs to know. We'll leave the technical stuff for your experienced LAN administrators and technical support people to handle. And since LAN administrators and technical support people are essentially one and the same, for the purposes of this video, we'll just call them LAN support people. Hello and welcome to the video course, What Every End User Should Know About Being on the LAN. To complete this entire course will take you about 40 minutes. Before we begin, there are 3 things we would like to note. First, at the end of this tape, you'll be given instructions on how you can get your certificate of completion for finishing this course. Secondly, if you have any questions about any of the material you are watching in this course, you can call us directly. And last, if there is any portion of the video material that is fuzzy or hazy, please call us. We'll arrange to have another copy sent to you. This videotape is divided into 3 sections. Let's start with section 1, which is titled A Basic Overview of LANs. This first section will take about 12 minutes of your time. LAN stands for Local Area Network. In the last 5 years, LANs have become very common in many companies, both large and small. Furthermore, most companies plan to install more LANs in the future. Knowing the basics of a LAN will really help you. A basic LAN configuration looks something like this. The main hardware components include the PC or workstation, the file server, the network printer, and any other devices that are shared, such as a plotter, and the cable that connects all these components together. First, let's take a look at the PC or workstation. The PC or workstation is the most common device on the LAN. Virtually everyone on the LAN has one. This is what the inside of a common PC or workstation looks like. Some of the components you see here include the power supply, the disk drives, and your PC cards. The cards that are installed on your PC or workstation will vary based on what your specific needs are. There are cards designed for special graphics, communications, automatic faxing, and so on. Your LAN support person can tell you more about your PC or workstation. On a single LAN, it is not uncommon to have over 100 PCs or workstations connected to it. Next, let's talk about the file server. Just like the PCs and workstations, the way the file server is set up varies from network to network based on specific requirements determined by your network manager or network designer. The file server is a powerful device that acts as a sort of central control on the LAN. It serves three main purposes. One, it uses network software to control the flow of data on the network. It acts as a kind of traffic signal to make sure that information transfers from place to place in a logical and efficient way. Two, it stores large amounts of data. It is equipped with a hard disk that enables it to save information that can be shared by other network users. Three, it houses software that acts as a security guard for sensitive data. Based on your password, it will only allow you to access certain files that are stored in it. This security setup is there for everyone's benefit. As long as you are careful with your password, your sensitive data is safe and confidential from those who should not see it. Here is an example of how the file server works. Let us say you're working at your PC and you want to access a report that is stored in the file server. First, you request that the file server send the report to your PC. Second, the file server checks that you are allowed to have access to this report. Third, if you have rights to the data, the file server would then send it to your PC. You are then able to do your work on it and send the new version back to the file server. Anyone else who needs that report can also access it. But just like you, the file server software will check to see that they have the proper security rights. In this example, since the data is being stored in the file server, you don't have to use up the storage on your PC. The speed of your file server and the amount of data that it can hold varies depending on how the file server is configured. The next device that we want to talk about is the network printer. There are different kinds of printers ranging from basic dot matrix to sophisticated laser printers. The network printer you see here is a laser printer. Laser printers are very common on today's networks, but their capabilities of printers can vary a great deal. Some printers are designed for speed, others for sharp color. It depends on the needs of those on the network. To know the full capabilities and features of your network printer, ask your LAN support person. The main benefit of having the printer on the network is that it can be shared by many people. Few of these people are printing at the same time. Because the printer is on the network, others can use it when it's available. Printers can be very expensive, and the idea of sharing these resources saves your company a lot of money. The last component that we want to mention is the cable that connects these devices together. Here's an example of a typical LAN cable. LAN cable varies considerably. It can be thin, like this picture, or it can be very thick. It's connected to the back of the computer or printer and carries the data from device to device on the LAN. Cable types vary depending on the conditions they will be used in. For example, some cable is made for high speed. Other cable is designed for durability. And other cable is better suited for long distance in case the LAN is spread out. There are many other types of cabling as well. It is important to note that some LANs are set up to be wireless, sending data over the airwaves. This type of LAN does not use the cables previously discussed to communicate. As far as software for LANs goes, there are only two main types that you really should be concerned with as an end user. Let's go over them briefly. The first kind of software is called the Network Operating System, or NOS. The NOS is considered to be the brains behind an entire LAN. Common examples of this type of software would be Novell NetWare, Banyan Vines, Microsoft LAN Manager, and Microsoft Windows NT. There are, of course, others as well. It is the controlling software that resides mostly in the file server. The NAS software provides the blueprint of how data will be shared, transferred, and secured within the LAN. It is very complex and requires a skilled LAN support person to use it and to work with it properly. Most end users, like you, do not need to know much about this software. For the most part, it should be transparent to you. The second kind of software is called application software. This is the software you need to be more concerned with, unlike the network operating system software we just mentioned. Application software is not transparent to you. In fact, application software is the common software that you interact with on a regular basis to do your different jobs. Software programs for spreadsheets, word processing, and many, many more are all application software. There are thousands of different application software products on the marketplace. Some examples of this type of software would be Lotus 123, WordPerfect, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and so forth. One word of caution: you should never attempt to load this software onto the LAN by yourself. Installed incorrectly, it can be very damaging to the entire network. Instead, let your LAN support person handle such tasks. This concludes Section 1 of this videotape. Now you should have a basic understanding of LAN hardware and software. At this point, we're going to take a 3-minute break. Please just keep the tape running. You don't have to stop it. You see, we're going to offer you a different kind of break. If you wish to watch, we're going to take you to different parts of the U.S. to show you scenes of what we're calling life in America. During this video course, there'll be a few breaks along the way. Each break will be about 3 minutes long, and in each case, we'll give you a chance to see the different parts of what America has to offer. At the end of each break, we'll resume the course. Again, just keep the tape running. The next section of this video, Section 2, is titled, The 4 Things Every End User Should Remember to Do. This section will take about 15 minutes of your time. You may already know some of the rules that will be discussed in this section. The intent of this video is to go beyond just telling you the rules, and instead, we want to show you with video examples why such rules are so important for you to follow. Rule number 1. Always save your data at regular intervals when working on a file. This can mean every hour or every 5 minutes. Let's see what happened to Lori. Lori enjoys skiing, hiking, and most outdoor activities. She also enjoys reading old novels. She says she is not good at remembering details and that sometimes she gets herself in trouble for it. We are calling this story The 8-Hour Day That Lasted 13.
Well, I had to enter in all our sales data for the month. We have a sales force of a few hundred people, so you can imagine how long the job was going to take. I had started early in the morning so that I could get it finished before the day was up, around 5 p.m. I had to have all the figures done for an executive meeting that was scheduled the next morning. Well, I had been working on this job for almost 5 hours, and it was just about noon. I was just about to go to lunch when the screen on my PC suddenly went blank. Then about a second later, it came back on again. I didn't think it was any big deal. I mean, we all lose power once in a while. When I looked back at the screen, I was suddenly shocked. The screen I was working on didn't have my data on it anymore. And that was just the beginning. As I scrolled up the pages, everything was gone. All the slots that I had entered data on were just blank. The whole file was blank. I decided to call Jim right away to see what commands I needed to follow to retrieve my data and continue on.
Lori was about the 10th call I'd received in a 15-minute span of time that day. Each call had been the same problem. The end user's computers had gone out for a second, and they all had lost all the data they'd been previously working on. They wanted to know what to do to get it back. Boy, I really felt bad for Lori. See, she'd been working on this report for almost 5 hours when the power had gone out, and not once did she stop and save her data. And she was so busy working on the project that she just plain forgot. It happens sometimes. I told her that there was no way I could get it back. It wasn't saved on any disk. It wasn't saved anywhere. There was nothing I could do. I told her that saving data takes only a few seconds. She just had to stop what she was doing for a moment, hit a few keys, and the data would have been saved. In some instances, the application software will have an automatic save feature. She needed to read the documentation and learn how to use it. In any case, once the data was saved, she could easily begin where she left off. When the power went out, she would have kept everything up to the point that she had last saved it. I strongly recommend to all end users that they save their data at least once every hour. The most they'll be out if a power failure happens is an hour's worth of work. Now, I save my data every 15 or 20 minutes. It's that easy. Poor Lori. She was working until almost 10 p.m. re-entering all that data again. But being the nice guy I am, I ordered late-night pizza for her. It was the least I could do. She did finish that report for her morning meeting, though.
Saving data is critical to avoiding what happened to Lori. Power failures will happen in companies, and they will affect you as an end user. Sometimes power failures can't be avoided, but by saving your data as often as possible, those power failures won't affect you too badly. If you're not sure how to save your data, or if your application has an automatic save feature, check the documentation. If you're still not sure, you'll need to ask your LAN support person. Rule number 2. If you're allowed to do so, you should remember to back up your data regularly. It's important to note here that in some organizations, the MIS department is set up to automatically back up all end-user data. If this is not the case for you, however, you need to follow this rule carefully. Let's take a look at what happened to Michelle one time. Michelle spends most of her time at the office. She likes to read financial magazines and enjoys spending time with her family. She says she is a very cautious person and likes to keep things organized in her own way. We are titling this story, Lost in Space.
I was at work one day when I got this call from my boss. He was about to give a presentation to all his top management. They had flown in from all over the country. He had been working on this presentation for weeks. He needed me to send over some special sales figures for our top account reps from last year. He said he needed them right away. Well, that seemed easy enough. I've always been really careful to save all my data no matter how far back I needed to go. I'm sure I saved the file as well. I save all my own files right on the PC hard disk. Using the LAN, I can send a file to anyone on the network, but as far as keeping the file, it stays right here on my PC hard disk. This system seems to work for me. As I was looking up the file my boss wanted, I couldn't find it. I went back and checked that I was using the right file name. The file name was right, but I still couldn't find it. Where could it be? I know I saved this file on my hard disk. It wasn't making any sense to me. If I know I saved the file on my hard disk, why can't I find it now? My boss needed that information right away, and he was relying on me. I decided to call Jim in technical support. He could probably help me find that file.
I remember when Michelle called me. She was hoping I could help her find a file that she needed to send her boss right away. She said that she had saved the file on her PC hard disk some months back. But that day when she tried to look it up, the file wasn't there. She said that she had tried a number of times. Now, right from the start, as I was listening to this, I had a feeling it might be more than just rechecking the file name. I was concerned that she might have lost that file due to an error on her PC's hard disk. I told Michelle I'd be right over. I got there and I reviewed her hard disk directory. Unfortunately, my initial thought proved to be correct. I found that her hard disk had some bad space on it. It happens sometimes. It was probably in this space where her file got lost. Since we have a policy in our company to back up all important data, I asked Michelle where she backed up these files, such as on the network file server or even on diskettes. And she said that she thought they were backed up on her hard disk when she saved the file. She made a common mistake of thinking that saving a file was the same as backing up a file. I told her that saving data and backing up data are two different things. Saving data protects against short-term immediate problems like a power failure. Backing up data protects against damages that might occur on the storage medium itself, like Michelle's hard disk. She had the false belief that nothing can get lost once it was saved. I've seen the situation happen many times where users on the network confuse saving data and backing up data. In general, data stored on a diskette or a hard disk is safe. But if the physical diskette or hard disk becomes damaged, like what happened to Michelle's, everything that was ever stored on that diskette or hard disk can be destroyed. From that standpoint, Michelle was lucky she only lost one file. I told Michelle that she should have backed up her data in a separate place, especially if it's as important as sales figures. It's a very simple process that I would have been happy to show her. By backing up her data regularly, if anything happens to her original storage source, even a major catastrophe like a flood or a fire, that data would be completely stored somewhere else. In technical support, we back up all the data on our network file server regularly and store it in a different location. Needless to say, Michelle wasn't able to get the information over to her boss. I know Michelle's boss. He can be pretty demanding. Poor Michelle.
As you saw, saving data and backing up data are two different things. If your company does not automatically back up all your files, you should make sure you do so yourself. You never know when you'll be glad that you did. If you're not sure how to go about backing up your data, ask your LAN support person. It's a very simple process. Rule number 3. Always log out properly when leaving your PC or workstation if you are going to be away for any length of time. In some cases, your network may be set up with an automatic logout. If you do not have this, it is very important that you follow this rule carefully. Let's take a look at something that happened to Bill. Bill likes to try different foods and he enjoys hanging out with his friends. He says he likes talking with people but gets intimidated when he has to talk to his boss. We're titling this story, How Rumors Get Started.
Well, it was about noontime, and I got this call from a coworker about getting a bite to eat. He said we had to hurry if we wanted to catch the lunch special. That sounded great to me, so I quickly exited out of a finance report I've been working on and just grabbed my jacket and left. Well, I returned about an hour later, and when I got back, something didn't seem quite right on my screen. I'm not sure what it was, but it just seemed different. Well, I just ignored it and pulled up my report I've been working on and continued where I left off. The report was full of sales information for our finance department. I've been told numerous times to keep such reports confidential. That's why I made sure I exited out of my report before I'd left for lunch. A couple hours later, I got this call from my boss. He was furious. He was saying that everyone was talking about certain information that I was working on in my sales report. He said rumors were spreading like wildfire. This report was supposed to be completely and totally confidential. He asked me if I had said anything to anyone about the sales figures I was working on. I assured him I had not. He said that without seeing my report, no one could have known the information that was getting around in the office. But it didn't make any sense. I know that I exited out of that report before I had left for lunch. My boss wanted to see me in his office right away. He wanted me to have an answer. Obviously, I was very nervous. After I got off the phone with my boss, I called Jim to see if he knew anything about this leak. I was totally confused.
I remember that call very well. I sure felt sorry for Bill. After talking to him and hearing what he had done, I knew exactly what had happened. Bill had only exited the file he was working on. He had never actually removed himself from the network because he had never logged out. I told him that exiting out of a file is fine, but unless he fully logs out of the network, anyone can access any one of his files or records. And the computer doesn't know the difference. The file server still thinks that it's him trying to find a file. And the thing is, it doesn't take long at all. Someone can view his files even if he's gone for only a few minutes. I told Bill that the solution is very simple but very important. He needs to make sure that he logs out completely and properly. First, he should save his work, and then he should exit the application he's working on, and then he should properly log out of the network. I told him that just because he can't see something on the screen doesn't mean it can't be easily accessed by someone else.
The story you just saw is a common problem. Management is very concerned about leaks of confidential data and reports. It is not enough to just exit out of a particular application. As a LAN user, you have to make sure that you log out from the network completely. Correctly logging out should also be done at the end of the day when you're ready to go home. Rule number 4. Become familiar with shared resources on the network. This is especially true with network printers. Let's see what happened to Mary one day. Mary loves to fly and she is determined to get ahead in life. She says that one of her problems is that she doesn't take time out to learn the basics. We're titling this story, The 1 a.m. Wake-Up Call.
I had a flight to catch to New York first thing in the morning, and I was racing to get this presentation finished that I needed for that meeting. As usual, I was running behind schedule. I realized it was getting later and later. I knew I had to stay at the office until it was done. My client in New York was very important, and I wanted to make sure that I made a good impression. It was around 1 a.m., and I finally got everything done and was ready to print it all out. I hit the print keys and went over to the printer. I waited for a while, but nothing was coming out. I checked the control panel, but I really didn't know much about the different buttons. I decided to go back to my PC and check the print commands to see if I had forgotten to do something. I tried a few things, but I just couldn't get it to work. I went back to the printer to see if I could get some instructions that might help. I didn't want to press any buttons I wasn't familiar with because I was afraid I might cause something to really go wrong. Nothing was coming out. Now I was getting worried and frustrated. Here I am at 1 a.m. and I needed this printout done before my flight out. I tried a few more things, but nothing worked. As much as I didn't want to do it, I had to call Jim at his home at 1 a.m.
Oh yeah, I remember that little incident very well. It was past midnight when Mary called me. She explained what was happening. She was really in a panic. I think it was for some presentation she was doing in New York or something. I asked her if she had checked the online button on the printer. It's located next to the rest of the buttons, right on the front control panel of the printer. I told her that the situation sounded like someone put the printer in the offline mode and just forgot to switch it back. As a result, the printer will not execute any print commands. If that's the case, all she needs to do is press the online button and everything should function normally. It's very simple to do. She went ahead and did it, and within a minute, she had a perfect printout for her presentation. I told her that one of the things I try to stress to all our end users, including her, is to get familiar with shared resources such as a printer. She doesn't need to know the details or any technical stuff, but she should be familiar with the printer's basic commands, its capabilities, and how to do simple things such as add paper and the like. Our network support staff will take care of any technical problems or adjustments that the printer might need.
Mary could have saved herself a little frustration by just having a basic familiarity with the printer. She could have avoided calling Jim at 1 in the morning, and she could have avoided the panic. Since you share resources like a printer on your network, it makes good sense to learn the basic features and commands. You never know when you might need it. In summary, here are the 4 rules again. 1. Always save your data at regular intervals. 2. Always back up your data regularly. 3. Always log out when leaving your PC or workstation for any length of time. 4. Become familiar with shared resources on the LAN. In addition to the 4 rules you just saw, we would like to suggest a few simple habits you should keep as well. Maintain open communication between you and your LAN support person. It's important to stay in touch. Talk to them during slower periods when they might have time to chat. Inform them about the kinds of things that you're doing and expect to be doing soon. These short conversations are great ways to keep everyone aware of what's going on. Ask your LAN support person for documentation about application software that you're using. Most of the documentation is easy to read and offers step-by-step instructions for users to follow. Reading the documentation will make your work easier. You'll see ways to move data around faster and save your information easier. You'll also find out ways to print quicker and make your documents look nicer. The list of benefits to you goes on and on. In the long run, reading the documentation is a real time saver. When you are reporting a problem to your LAN support person, try to be clear and precise. Sometimes, LAN support people complain that end users don't give them enough information when reporting a problem. It is important that you explain what you were doing when the problem occurred, what you can recall happened next, and anything else that might be of assistance. Your information gives the LAN support person a starting point to work from. Write down clearly anything new that you might have learned from your LAN support person. Before you know it, you'll have to refer to it. Keep a log of any technical information you might have been given. Write it down so that you can understand it later. Your LAN support person wants to help you with new problems. It can be very frustrating when they have to go over a procedure they have already explained. This concludes our section on the 4 things every end user should remember to do. If you're not sure about any of the information you just saw, make a note of it and ask your LAN support person. The next section of this video, section 3, is titled, The 3 Things Every End User Should Remember Not to Do. This is the last section, and it will take about 12 minutes of your time. As we mentioned earlier, you may already know some of the rules that will be discussed in this section. The intent of this video is to go beyond just stating the rules, and instead, we want to use video to show you why such rules are so important for you to follow. Rule number 1. Do not modify or change systems' hardware or software in any way. Just a few wrong keystrokes can cause big problems. Let's see what happened to Fred. Fred loves trying new things. He enjoys learning about almost anything, and he says that he has always had a sense of curiosity, and it has sometimes gotten him into deep trouble. We're titling this story, I Can't Believe My Curiosity Could Be So Dangerous.
I had been on the LAN for about a month and was really fascinated by all the great things it could do. I have a PC at home, and from that, I've learned a little about PC hardware and software. Stuff like basic DOS, you know. Well, on that particular day, I was going to work on an important report that I needed to send out that afternoon. When I got to my PC and sat down, I decided to start off with a little curiosity. The LAN is so incredible. I mean, you can do so many things with it. I've always wondered what makes it tick. Well, I just wanted to look around a little, that's all. So instead of booting up the regular way, I decided to take an alternate route. I came across some files that looked familiar, stuff like autoexec and config sys. Well, my browsing led to a little bit of, well, let's see what happens if I do this. I played with a few files, tried a few things, you know, small stuff, nothing big. I just wanted to see what would happen, that's all. Anyway, not much did. After a few minutes of playing around, my curiosity was satisfied and I decided to get back to work. I exited out of what I was doing and proceeded to boot up the normal proper way. No detours this time. Well, when I booted up, I was denied access to the LAN. I tried to start again from the beginning, but I was still being denied access. This was serious. My report is saved on the file server. I need to get on the LAN. I needed that report. My technical support person, Jim, was just in the building next to mine installing another LAN, so I thought I'd page him and see if he could just take a minute to fix my problem.
I was setting up another LAN with instructions from my boss to get it up and running ASAP. I was knee-deep in cables, PC cards, and technical documentation when I got this page from Fred. Well, it said urgent, so I stopped everything I was doing and called him. He was in a panic. He tried to explain the problem to me, but all I could remember him saying was over and over, I've got to get on the LAN, I've got to get on the LAN. It was some report that he needed to send out that afternoon. I went over to his area and checked out a few things. Nothing seemed to fix the problem. About an hour passed when I finally solved the puzzle. Fred had decided to fiddle with the LAN software, and in the process, he unknowingly altered some critical boot-up files. Now, I had to figure it all out and put things back to normal at a time when I was supposed to be installing a critical LAN. I could already tell it was going to be a very late night at the office for me, and I was a little upset at Fred. I told him that it only takes one wrong keystroke to cause major problems. He should have followed correct boot-up instructions and kept his curiosity to himself and away from the LAN. If he has any questions, I'd be more than happy to help him. You see, it only takes a few seconds for an end user to unknowingly cause a problem, and it can take a LAN support person hours to get it fixed. Luckily, this didn't bring down the entire network. I've had to deal with worse situations similar to Fred's. It's always by accident and always out of curiosity.
The LAN is a wonderful tool that helps everyone on it. It is also a very complicated system that requires cooperation between you and the technical support staff. If you have a question about the LAN, or if you're just curious, don't try to experiment yourself. Instead, ask your LAN support person. Rule number 2, do not install any software that isn't company-owned. Here's the story of what happened to Diane. Diane is a worrier. She says she likes to ride bikes and play tennis, but she worries that she might get hurt in the process. She says her biggest problem is not paying attention to rules. We're calling this one, Everyone is Feeling a Little Sick. It must be a virus going around.
I remember the day very well. It was about 3 in the afternoon and I was putting the final touches on a bid for a project. While I was working, I could hear some chatter in the area next to mine. They were talking about some problem with our network, something about a software bug. They said rumor has it that someone brought in a software package from home and installed it on the network. The software had a bug in it that wiped out all our files. As I was listening, I started to realize that it might have been me that brought that software in. I became really scared. A few weeks ago, I had loaded a software program on my work PC to show a friend of mine a new personal accounting package my husband and I had just bought that we use on our own PC at home. I was really concerned that maybe that software package was the one with the bug in it and had caused all these problems on the network. But I didn't understand. It worked fine at home. It should be okay on my PC at the office. And I decided it was best that I talk to someone more experienced about this. So I called Jim.
When Diane called me about her software package and what she had overheard, she was really worried. She didn't know if she'd really done anything wrong. I told her that the rumors were true and that a bug had wiped out a number of our files. But fortunately, we'd backed up most of those files and we were able to reload them onto the network file server. It took us quite a while to do this and get everything back in order, but at least we didn't lose much. Most companies don't get that lucky. As far as how the bug got into our system, no one was able to find out. It could have been a number of sources. You see, despite company rules against it, a lot of our end users on the network load their own software from home onto their PCs at work. You know, stuff like games and such. No one's deliberately trying to cause any damage. I think that most end users are like Diane and they just don't know the potential damage they can create. We have software made to detect the common viruses that are out there. The problem is, there are new viruses being created all the time. Some of these new ones can't be detected yet. We try to update our virus detection software as often as possible. But the best solution is for our end users to simply not load any non-company-owned software onto the network at any time for any reason. When the company buys software, we check it out for bugs before it's loaded on the network. I asked Diane to bring in her software from home so that I could do a bug check on it. Well, as it turned out, it wasn't her accounting software package after all. She was lucky. But the rule still applies. Never load non-company-owned software onto your PC or workstation.
This is a very large problem for companies. Some viruses can shut complete networks down and erase everything. There is a whole industry created around producing virus detection software, but the best protection is never to load non-company-owned software on your PC because you might seriously affect yourself and everyone else on the network. If you're unsure about this, ask your LAN support person. Rule number 3, do not disassemble any company-owned equipment. Let's take a look at what happened to Robert. Robert enjoys fixing cars and computers. He says that he is never far from his tools. He also says his biggest problem is not remembering how to put things back together once he takes them apart. We're calling this story, How I Turned a 10-Minute Job into a 2-hour headache.
One day, while I was at the office working at my PC, I noticed that when I hit the spacebar, nothing happened on the screen. I had to press down on the spacebar a couple of times to get it to work. I thought it might have something to do with the time I spilled my coffee on the keyboard. I thought it was causing a bad connection. You know, like a car battery when it gets dirty. I started to inspect the keyboard and see if I could see anything. I shook it to see if anything was loose. Then I pulled out my personal toolkit that I keep around and thought I would give the keyboard a closer examination. I thought it probably just needs a little cleaning. Well, I kind of got a little carried away. I kept thinking that it was something really simple that I could fix in a couple of minutes, once I knew what the problem was. After all, how difficult could it be? I tried for about an hour to fix the problem, and I finally gave up. It was getting to be the end of the day, and I decided just to put everything back together and call technical support and see if they could help me fix it.
When Robert called me and explained what was going on, I was really mad. I told him that everyone should know that company-owned equipment is not to be opened or altered in any way, especially not like what he did. I mean, he just about took the whole PC apart. I told him that it wasn't company policy for me to explain how to repair his PC over the phone to him. I just told him to leave everything alone and that I'd come over to his area and take a look. Not only did Robert leave his PC in a complete mess, but he bent some of the pin connections when he was moving his PC around. The cables aren't that long, and when you move the PC around, sometimes things get pulled and bent. It took a couple of hours to put everything back together and straighten the whole thing out. And the fact of the matter is, Robert had a very common keyboard problem. All our keyboards have a warranty against such defects. Normally when it happens, I just pull out the damaged keyboard and replace it with a spare one. It takes less than 10 minutes, not the hours that it ended up taking me. I told Robert that company equipment repairs is our job. We know how to handle them without causing network disruptions or damaging anything. I told him the next time something like this happens, he should leave it alone and call us.
All network equipment is complex. These days, even the most simple devices require special tools and knowledge. Your technical support people are specially trained to fix such equipment. Let them handle these problems. It'll end up saving you and everyone else time and money. In summary, here are the 3 rules again. 1. Do not modify or change system hardware or software in any way. 2. Do not install any software that isn't company-owned. 3. Do not disassemble any company-owned equipment. This concludes our section on the 3 things every end user should remember not to do. If you're not sure about any of the information you just saw, make a note of it and ask your LAN support person. Congratulations, you've just finished this course. We hope that in the past 40 minutes you learned some valuable lessons about being an end user on the LAN. Don't forget to take advantage of the post-test that we've included with the package. In addition, please be sure to use our pinup chart that also came with this package. You'll find that it comes in handy. We've worked hard to make this an interesting lesson for you. We wanted this course to be a different kind of video training package. A course that mixed good humor with fun and realistic facts that you can use immediately. We hope that you feel we achieved this objective. As we mentioned at the beginning of this course, you can receive your certificate of completion. Just call us directly. You'll be asked a few questions about the information you just saw, and if you're able to answer these questions correctly, you'll get this certificate sent directly to you. There's a small fee for this. We'll explain all the details to you over the phone. Again, congratulations and thank you for watching.